Ray Tapia discovered my Tales to Inspire project, and I'm mighty glad that he did. That's because his story is one that I know is going to keep you glued to the bottom of your seat. I can best share it with you through some footage from a 15-minute documentary aired on Statewide, a weekly public cable news program, and some archived film. So sit back and enjoy.
Hello and welcome to Statewide, Nebraska's weekly news journal. I'm Jana McGuire. Many of us have wanted to get in touch with an old teacher to let them know how they changed our life. But how about a former prison inmate who tracks down his old warden to say thank you? In the 1950s, Ray Tapia made headlines for escape attempts and leading a prison riot in the Nebraska penitentiary. After the state hired a new warden, Ray dropped out of the headlines. That was good news. Recently, he shared his story with Statewide's Bill Kelly. It's a story of how the prison system in Nebraska changed and how that changed the life of one man.
Ray Tapia, a tough guy armed robber, took another wrong turn in prison and triggered a riot that nearly burnt the place down.
I wasn't a very nice person. And as I say earlier, I didn't cry. I didn't have no compassion for weakness.
Maurice Siegler made a career out of trying to turn tough guys around.
The man is sent to prison as punishment and not for punishment.
40 years later, the ex-con drove to Florida to meet the retired warden. One man changed his life in a remarkable fashion.
Ray Tapia.
The other, at 93 years of age, had hardly changed at all.
Is this Ray?
Yes, it is.
Ray, I didn't remember you being this tall.
Oh, really?
No. I thought you weighed about...
Or this old.
about that
Two
old.
men whose lives intersected inside the Nebraska State Penitentiary had a few things they wanted to say to each other.
I'm kind of a product of your philosophy at that time.
In the 1950s, the Nebraska State Penitentiary was not the worst prison in America, but aging buildings made it little more than a warehouse for criminals. 20-year-old Ray Tapia got 7 years for armed robbery, and he only made it worse for himself.
Are you carrying a weapon most of the time in prison?
A knife. I always had a knife. Got a kitchen knife and sharpened it. Had it sharpened in the machine shop.
He got caught hiding marijuana in the prison yard and later with a homemade key. Each time he was sent back to solitary confinement in a horrible place called the Hole.
It was a place where they had just a toilet bowl stuck in concrete with a faucet, water faucet over it. That was your source of water for drinking and flushing the toilet. And that was it.
It was dark, nearly without heat, and bread and water arrived every third day, nearly starvation rations.
So we were over there 30 days, and that's pretty much the limit of guy. This guy's pretty weak and in pain. After 30 days, you're weak and skinny. I mean, you've lost all your weight.
Bad choices added time to Ray's sentence, making him a desperate man.
Every day, it's like getting a sentence. And I think that's what's the hardest thing for me, is to wake up every morning and realize that I had no immediate hope of getting out. There's nothing like losing your freedom.
Still in the basement of the solitary facility after a full month, a prisoner in the next cell shares a secret with Ray in the coded language used by inmates.
He said, which
means?
I'm going to get out of my cell.
Guards didn't understand that.
No, well, you say it real fast.
They surprised a guard, stole his keys, freed the other prisoners in solitary, and took another guard hostage and demanded to speak with Governor Anderson. In a handwritten note, the rebel prisoners laid out demands, including getting rid of guards labeled sadists and headbeaters. After 65 hours, the guards were released after the governor agreed to hear from the prisoners. Maurice Siegler worked as a guard at Leavenworth and reformed the Angola prison camp in Louisiana before Nebraska hired him to overhaul the state penitentiary in Lincoln. He picked up on the problem walking through the prison yard the very first time.
Nobody spoke to us. I mean, the prisoners, that you saw, there was no animation in the place.
What did that tell you?
Well, it told me what I'd been told, that nobody cares.
The hole had been replaced by a new but no less isolated adjustment center. The warden still couldn't believe one man, Ray Tapia, had been in there nearly 4 years.
But I asked him, like, why are you here? So he honestly told me.
And he says?
I helped burn up penitentiary.
That blunt?
Yeah.
He may have been a troublemaker, but a throw away the key philosophy did not work for the new warden. He asked his deputy warden to explain.
When it's done that way, what does that do to the inmate?
Well, it can do two things. It'll make him vicious, or it'll kill him completely, his spirit.
Siegler's philosophy for reforming the prison started with reforming the prisoner.
And I got the idea that all people who come to prison aren't people who need to die there. I don't think they're all going to be failures. And I believe if there's some way that they can have, they've got a lot of idle time. If there's some way they can use their time towards self-improvement, this is going to help them along.
And that is what led one prisoner to drive halfway across the country to say thank you to his ex-warden.
You weren't brutal. You didn't rule by brutality, as in the past.
Oh, no, but
the threat of force is what how they ruled before you came there.
But you don't have to do that.
So in Maurice Siegler's living room, two men sat down to share stories like old college friends, recalling how the warden brought the three biggest troublemakers to his office days after he arrived.
It was kind of refreshing to find that somebody would want to ask us what we could do
to help me,
to help you, and then in turn you're going to help us. You know, it was a community effort.
Well, and one of them said something about being tough. I said, hold it. Right there is where you've made a mistake. You're looking at the toughest guy here. I said, I've got the state of Nebraska back on me, man. You guys aren't tough.
No one doubted the new warden was tough, but also surprisingly friendly. He never had a guard at his side when he walked and talked to the prisoners in the yard. In return, there were new expectations for prisoners. Siegler required inmates to attend classes for credit. Alcoholics Anonymous opened a chapter, along with the JCs, Toastmasters.
I think it requires self-evaluation, facing up to the fact that here I'm a stoop.
A documentary done on prison reform in Nebraska shows a calm and mannered Ray Tapia cleaning his prison cell and studying. He had decided he could be something other than a prisoner.
I think when a person comes into penitentiary, he has to adapt himself to his environment, and sometimes that's rough, and I think that's when a person rebels the most.
Here's the way I made my judgment. Here is a guy, 31 years old. Up until 4 years ago, he had never tried to do anything for himself. And now he has he's won these honors here in our little deals. He has a GED from our school, and his work record is perfect. And my judgment was that if he doesn't get out now and get straightened out, he never will. And so I know I took a gamble on him.
Ray's story, From Dungeon to Destiny, is now published in Tales to Inspire, the Ruby Collection, Gifts of Compassion Stories. Well, Maurice Siegler was a gift of compassion for Ray, for sure. And in turn, Ray has lived a life of compassion himself. There's so much more to this story. All I can tell you is that I'm proud to have met up with Ray and to be able to share his wonderful story with all of you.